So what is discrimination in applied behavior analysis? When we talk about being able to implement discrimination training. Basically, it's the ability to differentiate between stimuli and events in the environment, reinforcing occurrences of a behavior in the presence of one stimulus condition and not in the presence of another stimulus condition. Different stimuli evoke different responses. Okay, so that sounds a little complex. Basically, it's just being able to tell the difference between things. And it's a little more complex than that, but let's do an example right after this. So here's that example. If I say, which one is blue, and you're able to show me which one is blue, then you're effectively able to discriminate between blue and red. You can tell the difference based on my stimulus. I give you which one is blue, that's the stimulus. You're able to differentiate the response and point to the blue one. So therefore, you can discriminate between blue and red. So, discrimination training. Training whereby a target response is reinforced in the presence of the SD, and a target response is not reinforced or is punished without the presence of the SD. And remember, we don't really punish, so we're just probably going to ignore incorrect responses there. But for your purposes for the RBT training, discrimination training occurs when a target response is reinforced in the presence of an SD, and the target response is not reinforced or is punished without the presence of the SD. So, if I give the SD which one is blue, and you touch blue, and I reinforce you, and I do that enough times, and then I say which one is red, and you touch red, and I reinforce that enough times, you're going to know the difference between red and blue. You're not picking up on the which one anymore, you're picking up on the difference between red and blue. Here's some examples of things in everyday life that you have already learned through discrimination training. Red light, green light. You go when it's green, you don't go when it's red. Or you go faster when it's orange, right? You stare at a TV when it's on, but not when it's off. You drink out of a glass when it has water in it, not when it's empty. So you know that if you see a cup of water, through discrimination training your entire life, that if you pick that up and drink it, something will actually come out of it. But when it's empty, doing the same thing won't. So you won't engage in that response. You say hello when you see a person, not when you don't. So when you see a person, you say hello, because of the reinforcement history. But saying hello just to no one doesn't really get you anything. We will use discrimination training in multiple areas at Learning Arts. We may teach our patient to pick up a certain icon when they want something, such as a picture of a drink when they are thirsty. We would give them a drink if they picked the drink icon, but no drink if they did not. So, let's say we had a 10-year-old patient who was nonverbal, and we wanted to teach him how to ask for a drink. Remember, we're going to reinforce the response, the target response, in the presence of the SD to promote discrimination training. So the SD would be, what do you want to drink? And our target response is for him to hand us this pitcher of apple juice. So again, I will say, what do you want to drink? And we'll prompt him to hand the pitcher of the apple juice, and he'll be reinforced with the apple juice box. But remember, the target response will not be reinforced unless the SD is present. So if he just randomly hands us this card before we ask, what do you want to drink? We would not provide the drink because it was not in the presence of the SD. So that might seem kind of mean. Well, maybe he's just asking. Maybe he knows what we want, right? But what we really are trying to do here in discrimination training is to teach him to pick the drink icon when we ask him, what do you want to drink? It will become more important when he has choices. We don't want him just to pick up random cards. So the actual target response is being able to pick up the card with the drink on it when given the SD, what do you want to drink? So it is very important when we're doing discrimination training to make sure that the SD was present before the target response. So to further the discrimination training, the person being able to pick up the apple juice box, we'll also start to introduce other items, such as maybe a Cheetos icon or a food icon, to make sure that when we ask, what do you want to drink, they will actually select the drink icon. So if we provide the SD, what do you want to drink, and they hand us the Cheetos bag, that was not the target response for that SD. So the SD was, what do you want to drink, but the target response was incorrect. They handed us a Cheetos bag. So we will not provide the drink. So when we ask, what do you want to drink, but then they hand us the apple juice icon, that was the target response that went with the SD, what do you want to drink? And they will get the drink. By doing this, we will teach the learner that the correct response for what do you want to drink, the correct target response is to pick up the juice icon so they may get juice. This will promote discrimination training. And this will promote the person being able to discriminate between the two items. Now often, we're going to promote discrimination through using prompts. We may need to use prompts to help a person make the right choice when discrimination training is occurring. Prompts, remember, are ways to help the learner to make the right choice. There are a few types of prompts that we can use. This is not an exhaustive list. We can have a positional prompt, having the card or item closer than the other than the card that we're trying to discriminate against. Gestural. The teacher can be pointing to the right answer or making some sort of gesture towards it. Changing the dimension of the stimulus, making it bigger, for example. Or we could use a favorite of mine, extra stimulus prompts, adding something like an arrow to make the right answer more obvious. And we'll look at that in a second and what that would look like. Again, we can use prompts to help with discrimination. Here's an example of a positional prompt. If you imagine that the learner is on top, the position, it says position of learner, and we're teaching this learner to discriminate between elephant and airplane, having the card closer might help that person to pick the correct card. So we would say, where's the elephant? And move the card a little bit closer, or already have the card placed closer. This should promote them picking the elephant, even when the airplane is present. So remember, we're going to reinforce them picking the elephant, because that's the correct response. When the SD is present, where is the elephant? So the SD, where is the elephant? Fashions the correct response by them touching the elephant. They would get reinforced because the target response occurred with the correct SD. So again, if the SD is touch the elephant and they touch the elephant, they would get reinforced. If they touch the airplane, when I said touch the elephant, they would not be reinforced because that was not the correct response according to the SD. In this positional prompt, we are moving the card closer to promote the learner to choose the elephant. We could change the physical dimension of the stimulus prompt. So here, with the elephant, I made the card bigger to promote them to pick that. This can be difficult just because you have to print a whole new set of stimuli or have multiple exemplars of something. But it just shows that we can change some dimension of the stimulus, and that can act as a prompt. Here's a favorite of mine, having some sort of extra stimulus prompt. An extra stimulus prompt just means it's something that's not outside the stimulus. Do you remember the picture of the elephant that was bigger and made bigger? That would be a within stimulus prompt. Okay, a within stimulus prompt is when you change some dimension of the stimulus. An extra stimulus prompt is something extra. I like to use arrows. I'll have like a printed out arrow, or maybe just make one from a paper and promote that. So when I say touch the elephant, I'll have the arrow out, and the learner will see that, and hopefully the hope is that will help them to pick the elephant and where I can reinforce it. Now, of course, eventually, since we want to encourage independence and autonomy, we want to make this learning environment as resemble our natural environment as much as possible. Meaning that after we utilize discrimination training in those prompts, we want to fade back any of those contrived prompts, those artificial prompts, as much as possible, or artificial stimuli as much as possible.